I'm Michael Arneel, and I'm here doing my first interview of any sort of any kind on official documentation with somebody that I've been a huge fan of coming up and being where we're at now. This is a big moment. I'd like to introduce Mark Followill.
Hi, Michael.
Welcome,
nice
man.
to see you.
It's very nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Firstly, thank you for coming out here. This
Sure.
means a lot to me individually, coming up. Everybody here.
The debut of the Michael Arneel Show.
Debut.
Yeah, about that.
Everybody here, we are all in a point of trying to find our own way. We're doing our own stuff. A lot of us individually. This whole thing came up out of the blue between you and I. Just me inquiring what's your interest on interviewing, with people. So everybody here that's come to do this, you've given us an opportunity to take our careers and take our steps a step further. So before we get out of the gate, sincerely, it's much appreciated.
Oh, well, thank you.
There are a lot of people around, and just the status that you're at, I feel like there's a lot of no's you could do. And so for someone that I feel in your position, the positions you have, it's pretty cool to coming up, and it gives encouragement to wherever you land. Keep these kind of mindsets.
Sure.
Like that. So. I know you as game voice of the Mavericks. I've heard you anytime you frequent, co-host, cover on the ticket. Professionally, what else you got going on nowadays?
Well, mostly it's the Mavs. That's goal or gig number one, and something certainly that I enjoy a lot, obviously. Number two would be I do FC Dallas soccer telecast. And then number three would be college football telecast for Fox Sports Net. There's Big Fox, there's Fox Sports 1 that's part of the Fox Sports Media Group, and then there are telecasts that are on the regional networks around the country that are strung together called FSN. So the games would be on Fox Sports Southwest
Oklahoma's,
here.
Arizona's, all that stuff.
Fox Sports Arizona's, Fox Sports Tennessee, you know exactly what it
So
is.
where did
Fox
that-
Sports North, that's
I do
the
want to get into, what brought you to the Mavs. So right now, where does that offer come from for the FC Dallas and for the Fox Sports work? Where does that come in for you?
Well, for me, I was a soccer fan, and a little bit of the backstory on FC Dallas for those who may or may not know or don't remember. There was an unfortunate, untimely passing of their former announcer, Bobby Ryan, who played for the team for many, many years. I mean, he was really a face of the franchise kind of guy. And he had transitioned and done a fantastic job of transitioning from athlete into commentary, doing analyst work, and had moved into doing soccer play-by-play, which is a pretty interesting field to get into. There aren't a lot of people in America that do that, obviously, with MLS really just in the last few years hitting its stride and developing into a lot of local TV contracts. So, unfortunately, at a tragically young age, he passed away.
Yeah.
And so the opportunity to do that opened up. That's where that came from, and just, they knew me as someone who had done some things for them in the past at a lower level than that, obviously, Stadium PA most notably. I've always appreciated the franchise, I had hope for their success.
Yeah.
And so, an enjoyment of the sport and a relationship with people at the franchise opened that opportunity. As far as college football goes, as far as announcing at that level, fortunately, as part of being under the Fox umbrella, with the Mavericks being on Fox Sports Southwest, probably a lot of people don't understand that these regional sports networks really thrive on having the contracts for Major League Baseball, NBA, and NHL teams. So Fox Sports Southwest, based in Dallas, that televises to a 5-state area, has the Stars, the Mavs, the Rangers. They also manage the telecast for the Thunder. They manage the telecast for the New Orleans now Pelicans. You mentioned Fox Sports Arizona, for example.
Yeah,
It has the Suns
that was my big thing.
the Coyotes and the Diamondbacks.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of frequent work out in that area, and
Yeah.
it's frustrating because, matter of fact, the Golden State game that we had at the end of this year, I was trying to catch that, but everything was Arizona Sports because Fox Sports back home. So
Right.
gets frustrating for local fans when you break out of your markets.
Sure.
But as far as Mavs go, so for me coming up, I grew up in West Texas, Lubbock area.
Okay,
and
great.
There,
I grew up. I spent some time living in Portales, New Mexico, as a matter of fact, not
Okay.
far from Lubbock. So,
Okay.
So, interesting story about Lubbock. Just and to get you back to that, as you can appreciate, my first exposure to the band Kiss was in 1979, 1980, somewhere around in there. They came in and they had a concert in Lubbock, probably the Lubbock Convention Center or something like that. Well, I would have been 8 or 9 years old at the time, and when you're in Portales, New Mexico, which is about an hour and a half by car, maybe even a little bit less than that, northwest of Lubbock, and keep in mind, this is before cable TV really.
What
in
time is this exactly?
1979,
Okay.
1980. Your TV then was the Lubbock television stations.
Yes.
That was it. And so when Kiss in 1980 came to Lubbock for a concert, the devil himself might as well have been dropping in the middle of Lubbock, Texas,
Yeah.
because it was, these crazy guys with their wild get-ups and their makeup, and Gene Simmons spitting blood out of his crazy, unique, whatever you want to call it, is
the Venom Vortex.
Oh yeah, all that sort of
right there, yeah.
So that's one of the things that stands out for me in my short time, my 2 years as a very, very young child living out in New Mexico and near basically West Texas.
And what's the terribly sad thing about you saying that's one of the standout things is that's not unbelievable, because even now there's, I think drinking and rodeo is your West Texas activity.
Well,
that's probably bad. People back home probably don't like to hear that.
And keep in mind that Lubbock, at least it's changed, whereas now at least it's not a completely dry county anymore.
No.
Where you used to have to always go out to the Post Highway, right?
Yeah, you had
out
to.
the strip
Yes, all the way
if you wanted to buy any sort of alcoholic
now
beverages.
You just hit any of the beer barns on the loop and you're just fine. But yeah, so that's where I originate from. Ranch kid, grew up very isolated as far as being part of a society, and also pre-internet age. I fall in that generation of kids that's pre-internet, post-internet. Post is we all live through social media and stuff.
Right.
But, coming up, we had Cowboys, mid '90s, early late '90s, the Super Bowl runs,
of course,
and then high school football dominates out there. So my exposure to basketball and NBA was Jordan and the Bulls, and that was it. I didn't have all the ESPNs, didn't have the internets to get fully involved, but during the whole, because I look at this decade of the Mavericks as like a journey, and there was a emotional core to it. Dirk, Cubes, everybody that went on that journey and started together.
Yeah.
Well, I moved to the Metroplex after my parents split. And we came out here, and I had exposure, and it was that season where in the second half, was it 99 to 2000 when Dirk and Nash made that really great run in the second half, and then the next year we made the playoffs.
That's correct, yeah. Your timeline is correct. 99, 2000 was, Cuban bought the team.
Yeah.
It was announced right after the first of the year in 2000, January 4th, 2000.
My birth here to the Metroplex coincided with that change, and growing up.
You came in at a good time then.
It came in at the perfect time.
From a basketball standpoint.
And so, but throughout that whole journey, you attach to something, you appreciate it, and like seeing Dirk grow up from a kid to actually winning a title. Like I still remember the one series when we lost Dirk to the sprained ankle and Ray Full of Friends was taken over in Game 6. Like I remember where I was at that moment. In each series when we've lost, like I remember being there, wherever I was in front of a convenience store at that time. You just feel the heartache of like the season ending and stuff. So I've always had a real intimate love for just following the Mavericks and just what Cuban brings and the type of owner he is. Because like I said, people always used to complain about Jerry being on the sidelines. Mark's right there every night, and I feel like
he is right there.
I feel like he does a good blend. I don't hear anything come from you guys or any of the local sports people or players of his over involvement. So I just feel like anytime if you're in a professional situation, I think he gives us the best bet. Like I would go to bat with him as an owner over anything. But so that's my come in with the love of the Mavericks.
And obviously, from my standpoint, look, I mean, a lot of great things that happened to Mark Followill's life in the last 15 years, and they don't happen without some, of course, obvious tip of the hat to Mark Cuban. So he's done a great job from the basketball standpoint of things, and like I said, obviously, me personally and professionally, great opportunities beyond my wildest dreams of getting to the playoffs.
So that's why I've always wondered, like, where did you come in? How did you find yourself as announcer for the Mavs?
I was fortunate in that when I was at the Ticket in the late 90s, I got some exposure there that I would not have gotten without being at the Ticket. And that coincided with the fact that in the late 90s, they still were not good. And there was not a lot of interest in the Mavs, and they were, quite frankly, one of the worst franchises from a performance standpoint in the NBA at that point. They played a little over 700 games in the 90s and didn't even win 200 of them. I mean, look, they were on Sports Illustrated, ranked by Sports Illustrated at one point in the late 90s as the worst franchise in pro sports when you judged it based on winning percentage. I mean, they flirted with two of the worst seasons. Well, they had two of the worst seasons. They flirted twice with the worst record in the history of the NBA. It was very, very bad there in the 90s for a while, and they could never get out of their own way, for lack of a better term. So, long story short, when I was at the Ticket, Maverick games were also on KLIF 570. Those two radio stations then and now were owned by the same parent company, just different parent companies now compared to what it was then. But that opportunity of being in the same building as that radio station led to the opportunity to work on the studio show for the Mavericks radio broadcast. The studio being, let's go back to the Coors Light Sports Desk and let's get scores from around the NBA. Here's Mark Followill. So I did that for a little while.
You were that guy.
Yeah, that was me. That was me.
guy,
Yeah, and then that led to the opportunity to fill in every once in a while when the radio announcer was sick, or if something was going on with the TV announcer and the radio guy moved up, then Matt Pinto would move up and do television. It led to the opportunity to fill in. The fill-ins went so well that when some things changed in the early 2000 timeframe, 2001, when Jim Durham, the former television announcer, then left to pursue bigger and larger, the late Jim Durham, by the way, went on to pursue bigger and larger things in the industry and was working at a national level. That meant our radio announcer at the time, Matt Pinto, moved into the TV broadcast. I moved into the full-time radio broadcast and held that for 4 seasons, and then transitioned into doing the TV broadcast. And this next upcoming year will be my 10th year of doing that.
Now, when did Chuck come along into the radio?
Chuck came on when I did
he
TV.
bleed?
When I moved
Did
from
he
radio
cover
to
for you?
when I moved from radio to television is when Chuck moved into the radio
Because when
slot.
Chuck came in, I had such a hard time diffusing who was who. I was like, is this still Mark? Because
Yeah.
obviously you'll have a similar cut.
Yeah, a lot of people say when they go to the radio broadcast is on in the restrooms and the concourse at American Airlines Center, and a lot of people will tell me, it's like, oh, I heard you when I was in the bathroom. It's like, well,
No,
no,
you
actually,
didn't.
no, you didn't, and that don't talk to me about what's going on with you listening to my voice in the bathroom. That's kind of strange, but
So when,
but no, it's cool. Yeah.
So coming up this area, did you grow up in sports in an association with local sports?
Yeah. Grew up here. Other than our story about my brief time out
Yes.
in New Mexico and near Lubbock, there was a couple of years out there, but it was all spent in the Dallas-Fort Worth area growing up. So like any young kid in the Dallas-Fort Worth area in the 1970s, I was born in 1971. So it was Cowboys first. Rangers were there. The Mavs came along in 1980, and you know, I warmed up to the Mavs fairly quickly, but at least not initially. I mean, it took a couple of years to kind of figure out. And Magic and Larry Bird getting into the league at the same time. You know, those guys were drafted in 1979, so they're coming into the league. Then we get NBA basketball in 1980 here in Dallas. So my interest level in the NBA really, you know, it's Magic and Bird, and them coming into the league, and then it's the Mavericks. Those are the two
So
things that sort of generated my young interest in that.
Comparatively nowadays, with the way we follow superstars, and especially the way the last decade's gone, essentially with the social media rise, what was that vibe like of just having icons where that's all they were, and any little news that came out? Like, just what was the difference in like how we can follow, you know, LeBron 24/7 versus what was the updates on the big stories of superstars back then?
Well, okay, so I mean, we could talk for a long time about this. Two things about it. Number one is that there's so much information that's out there that's available on the internet now. You know, I can remember growing up here, and I would think most people who grew up in a large media market can remember this. You didn't have the option to look at statistics all the time when you were growing up. So here's how you knew the statistics of players. Baseball cards, or you would wait, and the Dallas Morning News did a great job of this, or the Dallas Times-Herald, either paper that we had here in the 80s, is on Tuesdays in the baseball season or on Tuesdays of the basketball season, they would print, and you would have a page in the sports section that would be the stats from every team in the league. So you would have all your baseball stats during the season. You know, each team would come out on Tuesdays, and that's how you would learn things. Or each team, you know, in basketball season, it would all be on Tuesdays in the sports page, and that's how you knew everybody's stats from around the league. So that's how you, other than the leaders, remember that papers would also print on a daily basis. Well, these are the top 10 in batting average, these are the top 10 in home runs, these are the top 10 in RBIs, and so on and so forth. And a basketball season, you know, have a daily basis, you'd update who the top 10 in scoring and rebounding, so you'd know that sort of stuff. But to know much beyond that, I mean, you'd wait for that Tuesday paper if you were a sports nerdy, geeky guy like I was. You know, the other thing too is that you didn't have much national television coverage, so that meant a lot more to you then. You know, I think these days there's such a saturation of it that we have athletes on a pedestal in one way, but in another way, I don't know that they are. You know, that sports are held in quite the same sort of reverence, because you can watch, okay, for example, people will bemoan that, and rightly so, that an all-star game is not nearly, in baseball or basketball or whatever, is not nearly as much of a special event as it used to be. Well, part of the reason is is when I was growing up, and how old are you, Michael?
25.
25?
Yes, sir.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
okay, so we have a big gap here.
Yeah,
Okay, we have
it's
a very,
a lot
very
of
big
learning
gap.
here,
All
the
right.
difference.
So in the 70s and 80s, when you didn't have much of the way, you had some, but not much, national television coverage. Well, when an All-Star game came around, that was your chance to see a lot of guys that you would only see once or twice a
See,
month.
I've heard Reiner talk about that
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
The ticket,
Yeah.
Mike Reiner.
Yeah.
That that was the show that came to town. That was your chance. He described the baseball All-Star game. And,
Sure.
when
I mean, you
everybody
just
came
didn't,
to town,
now you can turn on if you choose to do so, if you have the extra innings or league pass or whatever, you can see LeBron play nearly every night. You can see, and baseball, you could have seen over the last 10 years, you could have seen Derek Jeter play every game. Derek Jeter wouldn't be this mythological person like a star in baseball like it was to see, in the late 70s to see Reggie Jackson. Because in the 70s and 80s, late 70s, early 80s, you could see Reggie Jackson once a week on either the Monday night baseball game of the week on ABC when they did that, or the Saturday afternoon baseball Major League game of the week on NBC.
I remember growing up when we would still be in West Texas, and when Ranger season would come around, it was even still big then for me to have my dad take me out to opening day, and these are all these legendary players.
Sure.
That's when we try to you try to catch the Yankees come to town and stuff like
Right.
that. So from you having experience not only in work but just living through it as a fan, do you feel how much do you feel we have oversaturated sports? Because I ask you that question as a sports enthusiast. I miss
Interesting
football
question.
so much.
Okay.
I love the environment of being in. I know what that feeling, what sports is, and then fantasy stuff like that. That to me, that's oversaturation. How it takes anything taking away from the game. But you, man, that's in it. How do you see it? What do you see?
Well,
change?
look, I mean, there's a market for it.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, people wouldn't be paying, an extraordinary amount of money to have the national TV contract for the NFL, the NBA, or, I think at a local level, an extraordinary amount of money. Look, the Clippers, with all this Donald Sterling malarkey that's going on, are about to sell for anywhere from $1 billion to
First bid came in
$1.5
today,
billion.
1.8.
Yeah,
First
so
bid came in today.
well, part of the reason that bid, as exorbitant as it sounds and as way over market as it sounds, part of the reason that bid, makes some sense is that their local TV contract is going to be up here in about 2 more seasons. And there are reports that whoever buys their local TV rights will be, buying a 10 to 15 year, $3 billion over the life of the contract to be on the Fox Sports West out there in LA, or Time Warner, whoever's going to buy it, whatever. I'm not going to get. I don't know. I'm not going to get into all that. But whatever, the rights fees are through the roof, and so the rights fees wouldn't be through the roof if there wasn't such a demand for sports programming. So I don't know, to be perfectly honest with you, that if you like sports, there's not an oversaturation of it. And the other thing too is that the appeal of sports on television now is that it's still the one thing that's out there that advertisers like being associated with for 2 reasons. Number one is, in most cases, when you do market research, brands that advertise with sports and are affiliated with sports usually do better in terms of positive, a positive frame of mind with the viewers. Viewers associate positive feelings more towards brands that advertise on sports, number one. And number two, and probably even more importantly, is it's a live event, and you can't skip over the commercials.
Yeah.
And you can't tape the show and watch it later and be involved in the way everybody else is. You can do that with regular TV, but if you want to be part of the communal sports viewing experience with your buddies, with Twitter, with whatever, the internet, chat rooms, message boards, whatever, what I think one of the great appeals of sports is that communal viewing experience if you're not at the game. And if you want to be involved in that, then you've got to be watching it live, and you can't be fast forwarding through the commercials. So it's still something that has a great appeal to advertisers and such. That sports is a live event, and it's great. It's the best reality television that there is.
Yeah,
reality TV is a big thing, but even more so, there's a lot of staging and scripting that goes on there, and there's not staging and scripting that goes on.
It's somebody who's worked through it, and
the next best thing
behind the scenes of it. The next best thing is
the play that's coming up ahead. That's the best reality TV there is.
Oh man, well, you being in it, with where you're at now, did you have a place where you saw yourself being or wanted to be, and like with where you're at now, how dream job is this versus still pursuing?
Like I said, it exceeds my wildest expectations of getting into the business. I was happy to have a job at the ticket. I was happy to have a job doing sports updates. I wanted to do play-by-play. And to be perfectly honest with you, when I was doing SMU football games, I liked that and thought, well, gosh, one day if Texas Tech, since we both lived out in West Texas, and what town? What town? Florida. Okay, the Whirlwinds. Yes. Yeah.
No one else of all people to know Florida is Mark Followill.
Yeah, well, I did a lot of high school football, man. So look, if somebody had said to me in 1997, hey man, here in a few years, Jack Dale's going to retire at Texas Tech, and you're going to step in and you're going to do their football and basketball games, and you're going to get that job, and we'll set you up with another gig around that. You'll work year-round in Lubbock, and you'll spend the next 25 years of your life working in Lubbock, Texas. Sold in a second, man. I would have accepted that and never batted an eye. So that would have been great for me to do that. I would have loved that. I mean, thought that would have, getting to that sort of level, that sort of job would have been perfect, would have been great to me. To get to the NBA and everything that's associated and accompanies that, I mean, that's, like I said, that's just beyond. Well, and that was all, and I'm just talking about from radio. I mean, I haven't even gotten into the idea of, never dreamed of myself as a television announcer, but the coverage of sports has changed, and there's a thirst and there's a demand for it, and I love being a part of it. I mean, radio play-by-play is great. Yeah. I enjoy it. There is...
Yeah, give me the difference in that.
The difference beyond the obvious of how you have to be the eyes and ears for the listener when you're on radio, and the pictures are already there when you're on television. The other thing is that in radio, and this is a great thing, but for the play-by-play announcer on radio, it's you, there's an analyst, there's an engineer who sets things up, there's the people back in the studio that get you on the air. Beyond that, I mean, a radio play-by-play announcer, that is you, especially in the NBA where you shoot the ball every 24 seconds. I mean, that in large part is your show. And that's great. That's very nice, and it all rests on your shoulders, and so you're going to sink or swim on your own merit, and there's great things about that. However, to me, I find it really incredibly rewarding that TV is, I mean, you guys know this, our viewers may not know this, that look, for every one person that's in front of the camera on a TV broadcast, there's 10 people or more behind the scenes that are doing things that have to be done to make sure that one person doesn't, look like a buffoon when he's out there on the air. Yeah. So there's a tremendous reward to me in terms of being part of a big team of people. Television it's a very elaborate production to put it on and to make it work and to make it look good. And so therefore, I think it's great being part of the team. It's great that you've got a lot of people around you who are very, very dedicated to what they do, even though they don't get the accolades because they're not out in front of the camera, but they're dedicated to what you do, and they're going to work their ass off. To make sure that you don't fall on your face. It absolutely is,
and that's what I say. Doing this and having the fortune to do work in TV and film, you do develop that bond. That was the first thing that I noticed when I was able to get in it full time and step away and rely on it professionally. You find family, and like I was saying earlier, I miss football because when you're in that locker room, that's a bond, that's a war, that's a family that you share, and so that's really cool to hear that side of it, even from your point of view.
Look, when you look at it, especially in my case, and anybody who does one of these sports, I mean, that where you have a local TV broadcast, the Rangers, the Mavericks, the Stars, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Spurs, the Rockets, whatever the case may be, when you're the local television crew, and you're a play-by-play guy, a color commentator, a sideline reporter, a producer, a director. I mean, there's a handful of people that are, and the radio guys, are part of this group too. There's a select group of people. You travel with each other on the team plane for all 82 of those games, just like the team is. And so, it becomes kind of like an extended family, and it becomes people that, that you have to find a way to make that relationship work with them because you're with them so much, and there's going to be ups and downs like there are in any human relationship, and it's obviously that's one of the unique things about it is making that work, and it does become like family. And as we all know with family, that doesn't mean that you see eye to eye and like each other. It doesn't mean that you like each other and get along every day, but ultimately, it is people that I'm happy to be in the foxhole with, the guys that I work with, they do a tremendous job, and you know, I love what they do, and
Well,
love
even-
working alongside those guys.
Even the foundations that you come through, because I've said this because, you know, several of the ticket guys have done a lot, and they do a lot for
Yeah.
so many people. And I think, you know, when they got started off, they survived so well from being part of the community and sharing that.
And they
vibe.
survive from that family mentality. I mean, they would call it bunker mentality of, you know, we're a family and nobody thinks we're going to make it. So screw you guys. We are going to make it, and it's all going to be about all for one and one for all.
And I
It's
tell
just
them
gonna
that,
be
you know,
yeah.
you run into them at a guys' night out or something like that, they still carry that. You know,
Yeah.
they've got the same core and they've all
Right.
been there. And so that's, I think anybody can share a little bit of jealousy, you know, that those guys have something that's just so lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
And for you to be part of it.
Yeah, and because that's hard. Look, you know, that's hard to have. Not to interrupt,
Especially in
but-
radio.
Well, in radio and television, I think that sort of esprit de corps, for lack of a better term, I guess would maybe be the way to put it. That's a hard thing to generate and bottle up in radio and television at a station, because look, I mean, you know, to have that, there's got to be a level of give and take and sacrifice, and you know, people in the real world and in the working world, you're looking to get to where you want to go, to where most people are looking, you know, the place that they're at is not their last stop. Mm-hmm. You're looking to advance yourself to the next stop. So to be able to subjugate some ego and sort of those things to make it all work with a group of people, I mean, that does go on, and that can be kind of hard to find, and especially in this subjective radio and television business where you know, you've got to try to do your thing to stand out, so you're going to get your opportunity to move up. And so that's, you know, to be able to have a group of people focused on the greater goal and not their individual selves, at least number one, their
That's what you
individual
wanna find.
selves. Yeah, that's hard to do
Even
though
in
in this
here
business.
with us, you know, that's what we try to build, and
Yeah.
any of us that get connected, we stay that way. We understand that, you know, no matter where I land, if this one thing comes up, I know who to call, I know who to come help, because even more so than, you know, radio, when everyone's stuck, sitting, working together for a common goal, you know, us here on this side of the world, we're all on our own path. A lot of people freelance.
freelance,
So
of course,
you-
absolutely, yeah.
So you're all on your own tangent. So that's really cool. But with you, your position with the Mavericks, you know, I've always thought, I tell people, you know, a few more decades, you're going to be my Brad Sham, you know, growing up.
Well, that would be
and hearing
that's
your
nice. That's
voice.
nice to be mentioned in that same breath.
So, I mean, sincerely, you know, I've been a huge fan of yours. I love the days where you come fill in on the ticket and I get
Mm-hmm.
to hear, you know, just your opinions. You know, even throughout this, you know, I wrote you should start writing a column. I don't know if you do any blogging or anywhere, but just
Not really,
just
no.
your perspective. If you had the free time, you'd catch a huge audience. But you know, saying like I really feel like you stick around. Like I would follow you because I love Brad Sham. You know,
Yeah.
hearing him, like I prefer to tune in, listen to the
Sure.
Cowboys on radio, and unfortunately, with my work schedule, that's what ends up happening a bunch.
Yeah.
But is that something you see? You see yourself being?
Well, that would be
here, being
great.
a
Yeah.
Maverick?
Well, look, number one, I mean, look, that's and Dallas Fort Worth, especially, that's a great voice. That's a great name to be mentioned in the same breath and the same voice along with Brad. I mean, you know, all the respect in the world for Brad, and he's
Absolutely.
been doing the Cowboys since the late '70s. So, look, that's you know, that's an awesome thing. And there's great things about being a national broadcaster, and to me, I think there's great things about being a local broadcaster because, you know, you come into people's homes night after night, day after day, night after night, week after week, year after year, on and on and on, and you build a rapport and you build a relationship with people, and that's a neat thing. So look, I don't know what the future holds. I'm not going to make any predictions for it, but if it's being the Brad Sham of the Mavericks, or to put it in NBA terms, Chick Hearn, who did the Lakers forever, Johnny Most, who did the Celtics forever, you know, those guys who are long time voices of the team. I mean, there's all sorts of examples around pro sports of that. Vin Scully and the Dodgers, whatever. You know, look, if that's how people get the chance to reflect on Mark Followill's career with the Mavericks one day, then that means I've done something really good, and so I would be damn lucky if it turns out to be that way. So.
Well, turning out, yeah, you say that. If you ever do find an end, even if it's decades from now, is there something about your personality, about you, that would draw you anywhere else, you know, work-wise or hobby-wise? Is there a part of you people don't see or know that you're into? Anything that you follow or do on your own?
Oh, well, you know, look, I mean, that would lead to another career path? I don't think so. I mean, you know, I have my you know, obsessive things that I'm interested in away from sports. I mean, you know, I grew up with a great love for the weather. I think this has come up sometimes. Yeah, I think this has come up sometimes on the ticket before in the past. I mean, had I, at the age of 18 or 19 years old, had I been able to handle college calculus, then I might have pursued a degree in meteorology. But I couldn't handle the math at that. I could handle it in high school, and then in college it just got to be too difficult. And I took a test and walked out of class and thought I just probably made a 20 on the test. I made a 57 on it, which, hey, it's a hell of a lot better than a 20, but I was convinced I was going to drop that class at that point.
Right.
So that was my, any hope of a math or science related career was done at that point. But it's still something that I, have an interest in. But for me, look, I'm a sports guy. And now I've been on the side of it, working for a team for a long period of time and doing play-by-play. And that's, there's a great argument to be made for being somebody really versatile who can do a lot of different things. I got advice a long time ago in the business, which was to pick something that you want to do specifically and hone in on being really good at one thing, not pretty good at a lot of things. And play-by-play has been the thing that I wanted to do. And so, to be honest with you, it would be very, very hard to envision not doing that.
Yeah.
I love what the guys at the Ticket, for example, do. To be a talk show host requires that there's just so much. It's being willing to sacrifice a lot of your life,
Right.
in terms of sharing a lot of it. In terms of always having to think, this experience in my life is good fodder for the show.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of that stuff is not stuff that I would want to do, nor do I think that I would be very good at doing. I think that's.
I respect that. That's really
Yeah.
cool because anything any of us do coming on TV film, like there's opportunities abound, but it's like I just don't feel it. It's not
Yeah,
enough
yeah.
for us. So that's really cool to hear.
Well, to be an opinion, look, there are opinions that you have. To be successful at that, you have to have. Very, very strong opinions about a lot of things. And when you've worked on it on the side that I've worked at, you see it from a different standpoint. So sometimes it's hard to have those strong opinions about those kind of things. So that's, what they do, though. They do such a great job at it. And to be perfectly honest with you, I could never do the job and be able to come up with the content that you have to do day in, day out, be compelling. For 50 weeks out of the year, you get your couple of weeks of vacation, but 5 days a week, 3 or 4 hours a day, 50 weeks out of the year, I don't think people understand how hard that is
Because
to do it and be compelling.
Just like
And get people invested in your people invested in your personality.
Yeah, because you're not just there for those 4 hours a day working. It's everything else you just described. One thing I'm curious about from your perspective as a sports fan, as a Mavericks fan, what do you think it is about where we are with the team that hinders us from bringing people in? Like big name players, what do you think hinders the Mavericks from being able to take? Because one thing that I feel they've hurt themselves a lot with is just how they've been unable to draft, whether it's trading picks or missing on picks. But what do you think keeps the rest of the league out of our market?
Well, look, number one, I don't know that I 100% agree with the idea that the rest of the league doesn't want to be here. They certainly were active in free agency last year. Now, I get what you're driving at, though, and that's about the big names. And they went after Darren Williams, and that didn't work out, and they went after Dwight Howard, and that didn't work out, and wanted to go after Chris Paul, and that never got off the ground with the Mavs or anybody for that matter. I think he announced 36 hours after free agency started that he was staying with the Clippers. Look, I think that's a very good question. I think it's a very fair question. I'm not sure that I have a whole lot of answers behind it.
And I mean, like, just chatter through. Do you ever hear chatter about Dallas? Because I see Dallas is a huge market, and obviously we're not LA or New York, but those positions obviously fill up somewhat quick. They get taken up somehow.
Yeah.
But like just the legendary status, the chance to just make a team here because everything. How long was the stint in the '80s of success? 4 or 5 year run of being not necessarily even a contender, but just a good
5, 6
team?
years. Yeah, 5, 6 years. They were the model franchise. In the '80s, the Mavs were viewed as the model franchise. That they were an expansion team who put these people in place to draft, to coach. Rick Sun, Norm Sanju, Dick Motta. And they built the team very quickly, and then they were in the playoffs by their 4th year. So it was viewed as the model franchise, and then they really lost their way. So look, I thought you just brought up some great points. This is the 5th biggest TV market in the country. I don't know why the perception exists that this is not a bigger market than it is. There's always going to be, when you're in New York and LA, and when things are associated with that, and you're part of that. There's always going to be, unfortunately, I think, for a long period of time going forward, that people are going to look at New York, they're going to look at LA, and everything else in between is flyover country.
Yeah.
Unless you're in Miami where you have a beach, or
Those
you know,
guys, man.
yeah, where you
Yeah,
have a
those
beach and a
guys.
nightlife and all the trappings that are part and parcel of Miami or
Stuff
something
that
like
matters.
that.
I mean, it just gets frustrating because you see what Dirk's been able to do. Like, I mean, there's been a lot of comparisons, but Dirk's my, he's my stallback. He's
Yeah,
the
sure, of course.
hero. He's, for a generation of us coming up, and I see just the Mavericks is just such an avenue to own it, to come in and take it. So I mean, because I never hear any chatter. Any chatter I hear for agency or big player talk is what could the Mavs offer to get them, not what are people's interests in being here. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, even when we got Monte was, no one else wanted him, and we were lucky to pull him in for what we did. But I just don't see the big names that come in and want to be here outside of us cutting a deal or something working towards their end.
Well, and look, I mean, you bring up great points. I'm not sure that I have, other than what I said before, that I have a great explanation for it. Only until the last, I mean, look, this thing only has really been able to be, to me, a worthy discussion in the last 2 years. The Mavericks were a huge spending team for a long period of time. They were never a cap space team until the new CBA came about, and you had some older players, and it became in their best interest to sort of transition in a different direction to try to put good pieces around Dirk. And so we've only been at this for a couple of years now, and the first year was a swing and a miss on the guy they wanted in Darren Williams, and then basically they said, well, we're going to punt on the rest of the offseason in terms of signing players to long-term deals. We're going to conserve our cap space, and we're going to give it another go the next year. And so, look, what happened last offseason, the summer of 2013, as we sit here and talk in late May of 2014, what happened in 2013 was exactly what Cuban said he would do. They were going to take a swing at a big fish, and if they didn't, and we all know, he has to phrase it big fish beforehand, but we all know he's talking about Dwight Howard, and we can now say that, of course, in retrospect, but tampering rules and such, you always have to be, in an almost funny way, you have to be careful about how you phrase things.
Have you ever had any issues with that?
Oh no, well, I mean, no, because I'm not somebody who's involved in wooing free agents. So I mean, I'm a team employee, but I'm not. Mark Followill can't really tamper with anybody. Okay. I mean, I'm just a. What do they call? What is Edward Snowden being referred to as right now? A low level low level systems analyst. Isn't that what?
Yeah, that's his position.
Yeah, that's his position, and he tries to deny that that's his position. Well, I'm a low level systems analyst as it relates to the Mavs. So I don't have a position of influence, so I can't get in any trouble in that regard. But so last year, what happened is exactly what Cuban said that they would do. They would go after an A-list free agent. If they didn't get an A-list guy, then they'd go after a lot of mid-tier free agents, and that they felt like that they could build a good team with mid-tier free agents surrounding a return of Dirk to a healthier level.
And I felt they did. I thought.
Yeah, I mean, they landed
did a great
Ellis,
job and set up for the future.
Calderon, Devin Harris, DeJuan Blair, Sam
70%
Dalembert.
of Dalembert,
Yeah. So the same thing is setting up for this offseason. There's going to be the pursuit of A-list free agents. I don't know how aggressive that's going to be compared to last year, because I don't know what the various A-list free agents, what their interest is going to be to giving Dallas a platform to woo them. I don't know. That kind of stuff. We're not going to get into those discussions more until we get closer to July the 1st. I mean, everybody's focus is still on what's transpiring on the floor right now, which is great, by the way.
And these playoffs, it's hard to watch. It's hard to sit and finish.
Oh man, not for me. No. It's look, the NBA is a great league and it's a great game. And look, I'm disappointed that the Mavs didn't get past San Antonio. They gave them a hell of a series, a lot better than I thought.
Absolutely.
But the intrigue of the playoffs, the competitive nature of it. Look, I still think it's great, and I wish the Mavs were there, and I remember fondly what it was like to be in those big games, watching and being part of that in 2011, and it was, a experience of a lifetime, but it's still okay.
That moment to be part of winning a professional champion, something that, even I still have those old dreams of, back in the backyard when you won the title for your team, just what was that as it wound down, because I remember watching it at the AAC, at the Jumbotron event, and just as it wound down and you just knew, what was the feeling like, just being part of that team from your perspective?
Well, number one for me, look, I mean, there's certainly prestige in being on whatever level people view broadcasters, but we're a large part to some people's belief, but whatever. I mean, we're some part of it, just like the CFO is, and the ticket salespeople, and the people who answer the telephones and the head of communications and all, and we all have a role in it. And so to be part of that, there's a certain amount of prestige and a certain amount of excitement to be associated with something like that. More than anything though, for me, I knew what it would mean for Dirk. I knew what it meant to him. I knew what it would mean for him. Yeah. I knew what it would mean for, I was there in 2006 and saw a lot of people who put their every waking moment into it, and then to have it so close and to it turn out the way that it did, and a lot of people whose names aren't front and center, that are behind the scenes, but to have them not have their opportunity to have that moment. For those that were still around in 2011, to get to have that moment, along with the people who are front and center, the Mark Cubans and Dirks specifically, and Jason Terry, by the way, and other guys. Yes. For those guys to get to have that moment, I mean, how could you not feel just bursting with happiness for those guys? So those are the feelings that I look back about it. That it was a privilege to be a part of it. It was a memorable experience, and I'm just. I'm thrilled for the people who are not low-level systems analysts like me, the people who are out there front and center, who are invested in it in terms of financially or in terms of their career to get that reward.
And I think, like you said, the first person you mentioned celebrating Dirk.
Yeah, sure, no question.
Just the way he went through, I think that was definitively everybody went through. But as far as all the good goes, have you had a worse moment with the Mavs, like a tumultuous player coming through and just always being awkward, like on the team plane or in hallways? Has there ever been?
No, there hasn't been. There hasn't been anybody that I did not like a seriously adversarial relationship from a player. No, there's never been anything like that. I mean, I know what my role and place is, and I'm not going to, if anything ever started heading in that direction, then I'm going to, go the extra mile to ward that off, number one. I mean, I don't want an adversarial relationship with anybody there, number one. But no, there's never been anything like that. I mean, obviously the most difficult things I would say over time was, look, it was clearly obvious that things were going pretty south with the Lamar Odom experiment.
Yeah, that was hard. That was because I honestly felt if whatever hindered him, I think if he shows up, I think they'd go. I think they go the distance because I felt.
Well, I don't know that they do that, but they certainly are a heck of a lot better.
I felt they would, man, because the way we lost the first two games off the last shot, I think you bring in your sixth man of the year. How's 10-10 not catapult you over 10-6? I just felt like if he brought that presence, I felt like management. That goes back to them. I thought they made the right move. I thought he should have been enough to carry them and go. Yeah. So
well, unfortunately, we'll never know. But that was obviously a difficult time.
Okay. Well, that's really all I got. Is there anything else like you personally?
Well, I hate that we ended on such a sour note about the Lamar Odom talks.
Well, that's how he ended us. That's what it was.
Well, look, it's been a great ride personally and professionally, and it's fun to get to talk about it, and fun to get to talk about it in ways that sometimes I don't get to expand on.
Well, honestly, for me, I mean, this has been incredible. Like I said, followed you, hear all you guys, and to have a chance to sit down and for you to come out and just share what you've been through, it means a lot.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming in. And
Sure.
Look forward to hearing you this year and anything else you got going on. But
well, good luck in your future endeavors. I feel like that's what you say whenever somebody's moving on
Pretty much,
in life.
Yeah,
hey,
just catch you down the road.
that's like when somebody signs with another team and the press release, Donnie says, well, we appreciate what he did here, and good luck to you. Good luck to him in his future endeavors. So, Michael, good luck to you in your future endeavors.
Thank you very much. Mark Followill, voice of the Mavs, huge local legend. Follow him on Twitter at Mark Followill. Find him on Facebook. Give him your support. He's a good guy, deserving of it. We appreciate him being here, and thanks for watching. We appreciate it.